Three reasons that I was overjoyed to see Cycles of the Eye, which is this. It's a solo role-playing game based on Citizen Sleeper, a breakout indie hit of 2022 that you can get on just about every platform. Three reasons why I'm excited. Number one, I purchased this so long ago that I forgot that I ordered it. And so when it arrived, I had that same feeling that you get when you find $20 in a winter coat that you left in there the year before. And it's like the sweetest $20 bill you could ever find. So I pre-ordered it a while ago. I knew it was going to take some time to get here, but it just sort of fell out of my memory hold. And so I was like, oh yeah, right. Cycles of the Eye. Awesome. The second reason that I am so very delighted right now is that this is based on Citizen Sleeper, which if you haven't played that game, it's a very tabletop-inspired video game. Really simple setup, really simple mechanics, but man, everything hums. Like every piece of it, the music, the sound effects. It's a very simple game. You just go around the space station and make choices. But it is one of my favorite games, definitely of that year, despite how simple it was. And it's very tabletop mechanic based as well. But the sequel to that, Citizen Sleeper 2 Starward Vector, is coming out as of time of recording this, less than 7 days, on January 31st. So perfect timing for me to get this. The final thing is that the game is not only designed by Gareth Damian Martin, who is one of the, if not the designer of Citizen Sleeper, but also one of your favorites and mine, Alfred Valley, who is the designer of Thousand Empty Light, Lay on Hands, Die Dream. In my opinion, IMHO, in my hamburger opinion, not only one of the best solo role-playing designers, but just one of the most creative, gifted artists who are working in this field, this thing of ours. So I was very, very thrilled to see that as well. I really do want to check out what this game, how they're pulling this together, because on one hand, since I've played Citizen Sleeper for the first time, I have benefited so much from playing that game in terms of game design and thinking about how a game comes together, because again, very minimalist design in the game, but just the way that it sets up its resources and its currencies and its decision trees, everything is so well tied together. And from what I've read, and I mean, I haven't read much because it's literally like still cold from being outside. The game pretty much starts in the same place that the video game starts, but from there you will craft your own story. And that story will be crafted using not only 78 tarot cards, but also 10 plus D6 dice. Now, I did get the tarot cards, which I'm very happy about, which we'll use in gameplay. They have minor arcana. You could really see the touch of Alfred Valley in these, because each of these tarot cards not only has interesting design, like for the major arcana as characters, and this is the art from the game, so it's really cool. But each of them also has like different things. This is interface. It has a different suit. Interface is one of the stat categories. I think the other one is endure and engineer, maybe initiate. And then it also has like different ideas: breakthrough, confusion, crossroads, indecision. separated by, I'm sorry, my hand is still healing from a surgery. I'm not just wearing dinner gloves here. And then, yes, like these are the major arcana you can see on the bottom, like the Fool, the Magician, etc. There is custom dice for it. I am pretty sad that I didn't get those. It was for the best. They're 25 pounds. And that's with shipping from the UK and tax and everything. That would have been tough. But if you've never checked out Lost in Cult, lostincult.co.uk, this is a company that makes three things. The first is like stuff like this. Oh, look at this. The design they make, their illustrations in a world that I consider to be festering with like graphic design that you can tell is based on the handed down mandates of like the Jack Donaghy's of the world. Bonus points if you got that reference. They're Lost in Cult. You know, I don't love 100% of the art they do, but what I do love is whoever is in charge there is giving their artists the latitude to pursue their vision. And so one of the things they make a little bit is games like this. The other thing is these design books, these sort of behind the scenes that show the concepts behind games. Like this one's for Outer Wilds. As you can see, they are often luxury items, especially the deluxe version. They have so Citizen Sleeper, the Cycles of the Eye. This is the basic container of it. But if you were to get the deluxe, you know, you get all of this, the dice, the Citizen Sleeper design book, which in and of it on its own, the design works is 40 pounds. But yeah, they just, as you can see here from the website though, handheld history, that looks really cool. Illustrated history of handheld gaming. They have so much awesome stuff, but they sell out fast, which is good. You know, it's like you want a place to be successful like that, but I hope, they continue to scale their production so that that more people can get these products. Because I think there are some really special products here. They have one for Eastward as well. I didn't love that video game, but it's not only the illustration with Lost in Cult. It's like the whole thing, how they package the whole thing. There's just somebody who's checking off every piece of it. Okay, I won't get too carried away with Lost in Cult, but those dice are sweet, and I got to tell you, these are the exact like symbols from the game. It would be so nice to have them, but they are unfortunately sold out. So yeah, just like a really, really brief overview of Citizen Sleeper, and if you haven't played it, you should. Game is very simple because the second one's coming out. I have to imagine it's discounted or will be soon. I over the last like 2 or 3 years, I've seen it discounted so many times. But it's on Steam, Mac, Windows, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, etc. So it is a dice resource management game, I guess you'd call it. You roll up to 6 dice every day based on your android's condition. You play a character called a sleeper, who is a copy of somebody else's consciousness who is paying off a debt. This is quite dark. They're paying off a debt by allowing their mind to be copied into an artificial body, and then they are having that body go work, doing dangerous, difficult work for however much money they owe is a specified time. So like, okay, you owe us, I don't really know the amounts here, but 25,000 credits. That means you have to have a sleeper work for you for 3 years. And so that person will copy themselves. And it's a really interesting sort of twist here to the classic replicant story, the Blade Runner and Philip K. Dick, that gets recycled a lot. I think it's a strong trope. It's really like what people do with it. And I think what Citizen Sleeper does with it is really interesting, is that the law is really that you cannot have a duplicated consciousness. So that effectively makes it illegal to have an AI, because in this universe, the only way to make AI is to like copy a consciousness. And so they're like, well, you can't have a copy of consciousness that are out in the world. And so no AI. And this company Essen ARP, they say, well, what we offer is we will copy your consciousness, and while they're working off your debt, you have to be in cryosleep. And so it is pretty like grimdark when you think about that, even though the game itself and like its presentation and it's sort of the it is a utopian vision, even though it takes place in one of these sort of vague techno-feudalist dystopias. There is the hallmark of solar punk, people and their humanity will overcome these through strength of their relationships and those kind of things. Boy, that sounded cynical when I said it, but maybe that says something about my own feelings about the universe at times. But so yeah, I mean, that is pretty grim though, right? Like, would you be able to do that? Would you be able to have a copy of you go work for 3 years, knowing that you exist out there? Because they do. Like, there's even this like awesome journal entry in the rule book here, where it's like, I try not to think about the other me, the one that sold their consciousness into slavery, the mind from which I was emulated. I'm not even sure if they're still alive or if SNARP found some loophole to erase them from existence, or perhaps they're awake, living out a life totally disconnected from my own, an escape from the cryo cells of the corporation. Either way, it doesn't matter to me. They abandoned me to this body, and I'm the one who must live with it every cycle without fail. I won't make a future for myself by poring over the crimes of the past. No, I must remake myself here. But the cruelty is that most of them cannot remake themselves because, again, very much like the Blade Runner limitation, they have built-in planned obsolescence. And so in order to stay alive, they have to get these infusions that will extend their life. So that's sort of the meta currency of the game, is this energy that your character has, and depending on that energy, they get different amount of dice every day, and then they use those dice rolls to dedicate them to that many actions. Those actions advance various clocks. Some of them are very specific, like paying off a debt or saving up a certain amount of microchips, but some of them are abstract, like you have to visit this place 6 times so that people think of you as a regular at this restaurant, or you have to come and help this person with their ship repairs so that they feel comfortable around you, etc. Again, not very complicated, especially at first. Starts really simple. It's what kind of draws you in, but suddenly you be 8-9 hours into the game and you're like, man, what do I got to do here? Like, I need to find this medicine, but I also need these microchips. And whereas most of the dice rolls are roll over, or it's based on quantity. There's also this sort of other space station specific internet view that you can kind of go through and interface. And that is more like key based. So instead of saying you have to have a dice that rolls over amount, you have to have a D6 that came up as a 1, as a 2. Some of this might not make sense. If you do play the game, it's obviously going to explain it a lot better than me. Again, I very much recommend it, but this is a game that has pretty good reactivity, and I hope the part 2 has even better reactivity. If you're not a CRPG player, reactivity is the level to which choices you make in the game affect future outcomes. Okay, so some games do a really good job of faking reactivity. Like, they'll give you choices, but no matter what choice you make, they'll railroad you into 1 or maybe 2 ultimate eventualities. But this game, there's different endings, there's different relationships you can have. Sometimes you have to let people down. Sometimes you have to break promises. Sometimes you have to act outside of character. But it is 100% you as the character. You're never given a name. You're never really given any information about yourself other than at the beginning of the game, you choose a character class, which, at least in the first Citizen Sleeper, really didn't matter. It was just like you had +1 in one of the stat areas and maybe -1 in another. So we'll see what they do with part 2 of that. That, I think, would be a good entrance point into the game. Or you can just pick this up if you're more interested in this. This could be just... I think in the rule book, there's enough of an introduction with the background and the lore, the universe, that I think you'd be able to pretty much get it from just reading that. The entire books are not too big. Okay, so this is the rule book and the lookup book right here, and together between the two of them, now they're almost like a half of an 8.5 by 11 page. So they're like 8.5 by 6 maybe, or maybe I have that wrong, but they're, yeah, like if you put them together, it would be like almost one sheet of a little bit wider paper, I guess. And again, there's the rule book, which is bigger, and then the lookup book. I think that's the name of it, the lookup guide. Yeah, the lookup book is so that you're dealing with 78 different tarot cards, so you might need to look through it and be like, wait, what is this major arcana? When I first saw it, I was excited about the design because it is reminiscent of the game, which I like, but that also it was sort of looked like it was like Man Alone branded here, and that's like my logo and stuff. So that's cool as well. I was not super excited about the outside cover because it did look pretty loose and like flumpy to me, and I'm very happy that that turned out to be a dust jacket, a cover, which once you see how sort of beautiful but also delicate the insides are, I was a bit relieved that it did have these covers because these are definitely, as with many things with Lost in Cult, the presentation of it, the layout of it, the design and production of it is just as important. And these are very, very pretty books. I just feel like a stack of really expensive like construction paper. Again, that's the dice system if you had the dice. And it has a little bit of a organization by color system on the side. You can see like the sections are divided on the side of the page here. And I think part of it is called learn. And then the latter parts are you're applying what you've learned. And then in the lookup book, I know that there's like a little bit of on the side of the page. Yeah, so follow this little thing right here. Ready? You see, like for each character. I don't know how much I would use that because it's not very prominent from the side, but it's a design feature. And the setup, there is a bit of a setup to the game. It does say that it identifies itself as a journaling game, but I think we need to be specific about that because I think I would say that it's a game that is well suited to journaling, but is not required. And the game itself does say that it's like some people will journal, some people will do some bullet points, some people won't do anything. But it seems to indicate that the more that you journal, the more game you're going to get out of it. I have not played it, and so that may be true, but I have found that other games that say that, we all have different ways of journaling. So I talk out loud a lot while I'm playing, and that in and of itself like commits these characters. They have a voice, they have a sound, they have a memory. So I don't think you need to journal to play a long campaign of it or anything, but we will see. Maybe there's a piece of it I'm not considering here. So I'll set up one game of it, and I'm just gonna run through the book, and I'm not gonna like read it live. I will pause it, read, and then give you highlights, show you a few different pages and mechanics from it, and then we'll see how we set up the deck and what it would look like to play through a game of it. And if you like what you see, maybe we can do I could do a playthrough of it, a session of it in the future. But let's dive into the rule book. Again, this is the thicker of the two books, and this comes in at 74 pages. And then the lookup book, 36, so about 110 pages. And once we get past in the rule book, like the lore and everything like that, we are eventually getting to the setup of the game itself is on page 615. Okay. And just so you know, it's going to start with the cards, and we can already see that the suits are by the different symbols in the game. Actually, let me get in a little bit closer on this. So the suits are the different stat areas: interface, endure, intuit, engineer. And all of these areas that are stat areas are also, for the most part, the different types of actions that you do in the game. There are a couple other actions that you do if you're in the cyberspace portion of it, but we'll see if it gets into that. All right, so let's check out what we need to know about the cards. Okay, so Minor Arcana is 4 suits, like I said: interface, endure, intuit, engineer. And these are these correspond to the standard tarot suits of swords, pentacles, cups, and wands, respectively. So interface, swords; endure, pentacles; intuit, cups; engineer, wands, which I think kind of makes sense. Like wands is flame, it is action, passion. I guess passion, maybe not engineering, but like creating something, creating momentum. Cups is spirit, inspiration. Spirit would correspond to intuit. Pentacles is like the land or the physical reality. So endure, I suppose, makes sense there. And then swords is more intellectual or rational. So that would be interface. And then it says the minor arcana represent the daily challenges you face on the eye, as well as resources. Major arcana, 0 to 21, each with a unique name. These cards represent characters. Minor arcana is daily challenges and resources. Major arcana is the characters. And again, just so you can see, it looks like the inputs and the oracle inputs that we're going to use, again, I do believe these are very Alfred Valley-ish, are on the edges of the cards. And so we can see on the bottom is the type of suit that it is. And then on the sides are different words that we can use to abstract different occurrences, which is a central tenet of any good role-playing game, is using abstracted inputs. And as far as creating these sorts of inputs and their delivery system, I promise you there are few as good as Alfred Valley. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create the adversary deck. And this is going to, we have to separate out 4 of the major arcana and put them in their own pile. And that's Harden, who is 4, the Emperor; Hunter and Killer, which is 6, the Lovers; Maywick, which is 11, Justice; and Ethan, 15, the Devil. These 4 separated cards are adversaries. When one of the characters is introduced during the game, they attempt to work against your sleeper. And these are the names of the characters that are generally adversaries in the video game as well. And so we will pull those out now. All right, so we have Ethan, Hunter Killer, which is like the adversary in the cyber space portion of the game; Harden, and Maywick. And all of them do say their major arcana name below, their number up top, and they are listed as adversary. So we take these then, and we shuffle each deck and place them face down into 3 stacks: major arcana, minor arcana, and adversaries. So I will separate those out, and then the shuffle, given that I have to do it with one hand, I would rather do it off camera, because if I did it on camera, I don't think any of you would ever be able to get the horror out of your mind. Okay. All right, so I did take out the other major arcana cards. That's quite easy, considering those 2 are all of them. And so the rest of the cards basically look like this, the minor arcana, except for the like quote-unquote face cards, which in this would be the Page, the Knight, the Queen, and the King. So each of those has a little bit of a different look to it. And I will, for now, it doesn't seem like I have to do anything special with those. I think those can still be part of it. In Cycles, okay, so now we have to create drive decks. In Cycles of the Eye, drives are your goals that your sleeper is pursuing. Now that we've separated and shuffled the major arcana, minor arcana, and adversaries, it's time to create the decks we'll use during play. Deal 5 major arcana cards face down into a pile. Deal 1 adversary card face down on top. Divide this pile into 3 stacks of 2 cards apiece face down. Add 4 minor arcana cards to each pile, and then shuffle each pile. The end result should be 3 piles, each containing 4 minor arcana and 2 major arcana, with 1 stack concealing an adversary. Arrange the 3 piles in landscape orientation across the top of your play area. Turn over the top card on each so it's face up. Remove the remaining adversary cards from play. Place them. The remaining major arcana cards to the side close by will add more cards from this deck over the course of play. Hold on to the minor arcana cards for the next step. Note, in each playthrough, you will face one of the 4 adversaries. In later playthroughs, try adding a different adversary. So that is a limiting piece of this. Is like there probably, if you played this several times, you might say, hey, it'd be good to have another adversary, which might be the time that Lost in Cult releases a expanded adversary deck. They're good at business. Okay, so I'm going to just zoom out a little bit. So this is the deck with the 5 major arcana cards and one of the adversaries on top. This is supposed to be shuffled. I did include some of the characters that I remembered from the game. I don't know why, because I cheated. And then what we're going to do is we are going to divide this pile into 3 stacks of 2 cards apiece face down. I'm not sure. Okay, so we can do that in any order, right? 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and we will shuffle it again. Like I know the adversary card is right there, but then we're going to add 4 minor arcana cards to each pile, and then shuffle each pile. So each pile then will get 4 minor arcana cards, and hopefully I can figure that out. Okay, so I have these 3 decks here, each with 6 cards. There is 5 major arcana. There is 12 minor arcana and 1 adversary. And then I'm going to shuffle each of these decks so that each of them, the order in which those things appear is randomized. Let's do that now. Wait, I'm sorry. Did I just explain to you what shuffling is? Okay, those are nice and shuffled. Shouflade. Michael Shouflade. Arrange the 3 piles in landscape orientation across the top of your play area. Okay, not sure what that... but I'll do what it says. Just follow the rules and nobody gets hurt. Okay. Remove the remaining adversary cards from play. Place the remaining major arcana cards to the side close by. Major arcana. Okay. So I will keep those close by. There those are. We'll add more cards in this deck. Hold on to the minor arcana cards for next step. All right. That's for standard tarot. Now we have to create challenge decks. Challenge decks are collections of obstacles your sleeper needs to overcome in order to fulfill drives. Depending on the value of the face card on each drive deck, add a number of minor arcana cards to a pile in the space below each drive deck in your play area. Arrange these cards in portrait. Flip the top card of each pile to face up, and place the remaining deck of minor arcana to the left of your play area. This is your draw deck, so it should look like this. Let's get it in shape. I forgot to turn over the top card so that it's facing up. Okay. All right, so we have Judgment, 20, Sabine, Major Arcana, 2, Intuit, and then a Knight of Interface. So depending on what the top card is, depending on the value of the face card on each drive deck, add a number of minor arcana cards to a pile in the space below each drive deck. Use the following table to see how many cards each. So an ace gets 1, 2 to 5 get 2, 6 to 10 is 3, and any major arcana is 4. So this would be a face card gets 4. This one would get 2 and 4. All right. Okay, so I have 4 right here, 2 right here, and 4 right here. I don't know if I was supposed to look at that, but I really didn't even know what was on there. Just to sort of as a respect for the designers of this game, I want because a lot of it is in the art of the game and stuff. I am going to read for the rest of the game. Like I might reference a few things in the book, but I'm going to read from the book off camera and then just sort of like bring up the game using the instructions that are given. This will also afford us like some more play area. So we have to flip the top card of each pile face up. So we have 9 Intuit, 10 Intuit, and 7 Engineer. Okay. Place the remaining deck of this is your draw deck. Okay. There's a setup diagram. All right. So luckily everything looks like it's supposed to. And now we just need to, we'll set the fortune die and roll the energy die. To set the fortune die, place a single die below the draw deck and set the value to 1. This is your fortune die. It builds up over time, symbolizing fate working in your favor. So for that, I have my gorgeous Technicolor Dream die, and we'll set that to 1. Okay. It builds up over time, and then set energy dice. Roll 5 dice and arrange them in the space below the challenges. These are your energy dice. They represent the energy your sleeper has each cycle. With their decaying body, they can never be sure how much they will have to give. So for these, I've decided to use these because they fit pretty well. Okay. All the dice in the game are 6-sided. And energy dice are always rolled at the start of a cycle. Cycle dice are used for tracking characters in the progress of your fortune die. The data cloud dice, if you have them, are intended for hacking, which is described later in this book. However, this can also be carried out with energy dice. Okay, so this is the final diagram of what everything should look like. And I think we did a pretty good job. It's not quite as clean here, but for the most part, I think it's shuffled pretty poorly. And that's okay because I just kind of want to see what the actual, like what it would look like to play this game. And we're getting there. And so far, I can tell you that it is similar. A lot of things are similar, either like exactly similar, like this energy dice, or some of the stuff I can see how they're creating the mechanic that is done automatically in the background of the game. And then there are some things that I'm like, I have no idea what this is because it's not in the game, and I'm curious what they're going to do with it. So we'll keep going. Okay, so basically we are now going to set up these threads. And threads, they say these are concurrent storylines that your sleeper, they're basically like the priorities that compete for your sleeper's attention. And these are the things that we're going to try to make progress on. And it won't always be linear. And maybe like we'll focus on one thread a lot while another one takes a back seat, etc. And some of those, again, could be like mission-based. Some of those more abstract, like being accepted or having people allow you to have, the same rights as others. And it says drives and challenges are removed from a column as they're completed using the energy dice and resources, and their impact is woven into their respective threads over the course of play. So that they said the idea is that like between each of these, or I guess the columns that are made here are the 3 threads. And what we have to do is we have to determine our drives by looking at 3 face-up drive cards, which could be major or minor arcana. Now, I don't know if we're going to like use these. I'll have to figure that out, but this is where we're actually going to have to use the Oracle a bit because it'll say some stuff on the card, but there is on page 27 a better instruction on how to establish threads based on the different suits and everything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out which of these cards are my drives, and then I'm going to talk through the threads we're going to create from that. Okay, that's right. So these are my drives that I'm going to pull this from because these are actually the drive decks. I forgot. These are the names of the decks. So we have Sabine, Judgment, we have Intuit, and we have Interface. And so I'm going to take a look at these and talk us through what they represent. Now, for the minor arcana or face cards, we can use the information that's on the sides here. Swords are usually anything that's interface, working with digital systems. Endure is pentacles, using strength or willpower. Cups is Intuit, which is approaching problems with awareness. And Engineer Wands is working with machines and physical tools. So we'll be able to draw something from that. But for the major arcana, we only have like Judgment and Sabine. Now, I know Sabine in the game, I believe, because you remember someone in a clear poncho, as there was that character in the first Blade Runner that I believe went through a plate glass window. Anyway, so what I would do here is I'd go into the lookup book and I would go and take a look at Sabine here because, you know, not everybody who plays this is going to know who Sabine is. But I believe Sabine is a doctor, a secretive, empathetic doctor working for the Yatagan gang in exchange for their protection. Jaded and lost, they're confronted by their past when they encounter a sleeper in their surgery. Okay, so that's an encounter prompt, negative resolution, positive resolution, connections. Upright is reflection, reckoning, awakening. Reversed is lack of self-awareness, doubt, self-loathing. So I'm going to have to figure out how I turn that into a drive. Now, the reason, like there's plenty of stuff that I just read that can be converted into a drive, but what I want to make sure of is like, for a major arcana, do I use that as an input? Or does this become that like part of my drive has to do with Sabine? That's what I need to figure out. Okay, so basically when we have a character on top of a drive deck, this represents an encounter with that character. We're going to roll a die, a cycle die, which I guess would be a different one, and we're going to place it on top. It has to be anything but 1, so that's a 3. Let's see if I can make that up. Well, it's kind of hard to see that, I guess. Okay, that's a 3. And check the character's entry in Citizens of the Eye. You'll use the prompts in their entry to determine what the character means for the thread in which they appear, similar to the way you determine the minor arcana drives, except the character will not give you an explicit reward should you complete their associated challenge deck. For now, this is all you need to do. Later, encountering and resolving characters section will go into more detail about the characters. So this also coincides with the game in that nothing is ever straightforward. Sabine will want to give me medication, but before that, I'm going to have to go get this ingredient. I'm going to have to talk to a person who needs it, and that's going who can give it to me, except they need safe passage for somebody, etc. And so the bottom line is I'm not going to build all that out right now, but the challenge here, or whatever the task is going to have a cycle die of 3. And I guess the other thing that we need to figure out, and so there's quite a bit of front end solo work here, but I think that could be good because we're going to set up a lot of stuff and then we're just going to like press play. And I think that will work pretty well for having a good chunk of like gameplay flow. But in addition to determining these drives, we then have to determine like what is considered progress. And then what is like the reward? What do you get from this thread should you complete it? Decide what project or aim each drive card represents and make a note. Then determine what potential reward awaits your sleeper. Now, I'm not doing a full playthrough right now, but it says when you're deciding on what reward a drive should represent, try scaling it to the value of the card. The higher the number, the more valuable. A 3 might be a humble scrap, while a 10 could be a precious ship mine. If you are stuck, the currency of the eye called cryo is always a good reward. So let's try this middle one here. All right. So this is disconnection, partnership, and it is Intuit. It's 2. It's small, and I think this is a good one to start the game with. Now we do have to start from a pretty familiar place, similar to the game, but that's okay. Like it doesn't mean that it's going to be ho hum, right? I think this is a very neutral place to start. Is the sleeper just woke up? All right, they're on this ship. They're the only one on this ship. They can't really be there. And so we have disconnected partnership. It was dealt like face up. Okay. If it was inverted, it might be more about disconnection. And face up or down here, there's a reason why it's like on the sides here. And now I'm understanding the landscape thing. Let me actually zoom. Because this is face up, you can see it's like on top. Whereas if it was this way, disconnection would be on the top. So I have partnership and Intuit, okay? And it has a rating of 2. So it's a little something. And Intuit, approaching problems with awareness. Approaching problems with awareness. We need probably a little something more here. And so there are some inputs that are examples for Intuit. The eye is rich with communities and social structures, from farming unions and workers' collectives to sports clubs and gamblings. Which of them are you trying to become a part of? You can also talk about part-time jobs. You can also trying to map and understand like housing areas, docks, derelicts, okay? And part of this, I think, is we will have to utilize some other inputs in order to build this out a little bit. Obviously, on my desk here, I have about 6 million things that I can do this with. The Game Master's Apprentice deck, especially if you have the sci-fi or this. I don't know if there's a cyberpunk one. I was going to look that up, but that would be a good one to have. So that we can figure this out. But I know that I'm looking for partnership and that it is Intuit. Now, I did not plan this. This was one of the cards I just kind of threw in. But in the video game, one of the first things that happens is you wake up and there's like this old dude who's just like, hey, you can come work in my shipyard, but like I swear you better not get me in trouble. And so that might be a little bit of what happens here. Is I'm like, I don't know why I'm here, but I need some help. I'll do work for you if you let me sleep in like the storage room or something like that. So I think that's a good basis, but what I'm going to look up now is like what other tools are at our disposal besides just like partnership and Intuit. Is there something else that we can draw on here? All right, this is I'm getting more of an idea here. This is just a side note, is that every time I go to sleep and I complete all the challenges I'm able using the dice that I have, the cycle comes to an end, and so we decrement any cycle dice that we have out by 1. So remember, this was 3. This will go down to 2. When it goes down to 1, the next day, that storyline with Sabine or whatever that thread is at that time has to be resolved. Okay. And then you can increase the fortune die by 1 if you haven't used the fortune dice at all. And then you gather all your unexhausted dice to roll next cycle. And you look through the discard pile, where like if we were done with Sabine, I would then put in the discard pile. At the end of that cycle, we flip that over, and then we reflect on everything that has happened. Obviously a good time to journal. And I will say, even if you're someone like me that wouldn't really plan on journaling, the part on journaling is very good for helping you to consider like some of the main questions of the game. So I would look at this page. There's one on reflecting as well as journaling, and it has good questions. But I'm still looking for something that I can use to fill in the empty spaces. That's really the thing that, because I could just create this here, but I need just a little bit more. It would be really nice to have like single inputs, like even like an apple, a broken keyboard, something like that to give me a little bit more. Let's see what we have. Well, I am sorry to say that I do not see anything that can be used in this way. I think this is a bit of, let me say this, for somebody who is quite experienced in solo play and comfortable with using other tools and going off on their own. I think this is no big deal. There's plenty of different Oracle-based dice rolls, tables, other books that can be used. But as far as what is given here for each, and it's not even threads, right? It's like when it in this section on establishing threads, it basically has for each of these, it has the suit, and then it has 3 examples of drives and 3 examples of rewards. You salvage a rare component. What old ship, machine, or system was it once a part of? Well, where I could really use something to spur the answer to that. Otherwise, I have to sit here and go, what old ship, machine, or system was it part of? A rare component? So I could either go very bland and I can be like, yeah, it was an old ship component, and that's not very satisfying. Or I can go like hyper specific and be like, it was the old ship called the Marianas. It flew, and it's like, I could do that, but that's going to be quite exhausting. So unless I'm missing something, and I do believe I looked through both of these books, what would really be a nice supplement for this, and I know when there's a heavy focus on aesthetic, there is compromises that have to be made. I also know that just from having some discussions, messages with Alfred about this, I know that he prefers to have things more like, I wouldn't say open-ended, but like definitive, and then the player can work within those constraints. But I do think just even the semiotic standard table, something like that, which is on the back of Thousand Empty Light, I just need a little something more, because it's like, okay, I know about Sabine. I know that Sabine has 3 cycles, and I know that each time that's going to decrement by 1 die, and then that's going to resolve that thread, and then I'll need to roll a resource dice, and then I'll need to figure out if I got my reward or etc. But like, I also want to talk to Sabine, and especially if I don't know Sabine, Sabine is having a problem. Well, if I say Sabine is having a problem, and then I had just a little something, and I'll just like use an example here of how sort of non-specific it can be. We'll pull from the sci-fi deck here. Is this the... Nope, that is definitely the fantasy one. Is this sci-fi? This looks like sci-fi. Soy and lentil protein cakes. You know, I don't even need all that, right? I could have the word treats or workshop or barracks or loyalty, just like something more that I can build off of, or else it feels like at this point right now, with the resources that I have here, I would feel a bit constricted, or I would feel like I'm doing more work than the card is doing, or I would feel like it's not even worth it, and I'll just play it like a board game or a card game, where my goal is not to create a world here. My goal is to just like do resource management. And I'm not saying I know that's not what was intended here, and it's just my suggestion. But I think it's a very easy fix to just add just an oracle, a like who, what, where, when oracle, a word like a even adjective noun oracle, right? Like if Intuit and partnership, okay, and I'm like, all right, so Intuit and partnership, Intuit has something to do with, it didn't even really make sense to me. Intuit should be Intuit, but well, whatever it says, I need to work with some sort of system and a partnership. How about I look on this table here, okay, and it says decrepit is the first word, and then wrench. And I go, I see. Okay, so the first thing is I meet an elderly couple, and they agree to let me help them around the house because he's a handyman and that's how they make money, and they don't have enough credits to retire. And so they agree to let me sleep in their tiny storage room as long as I help him with like the backed up repairs that he has because his hand is failing. Right? I'm not saying this poor old man's decrepit, but I'm saying it's like that gives me just a little bit more to build out something, because it just, well, yeah, I'm just sort of, I think I've just said it enough times here to have made my point. Otherwise, I really like the setup of the game. I like the approach. I obviously like how it looks. And I think that there is really big potential here. I'm very happy to see a lot of Citizen Sleeper converted, I would say, successfully in this way. There is a piece also that, again, might be covered in something like, I didn't read the sections on hacking or being hunted and dealing with stuff like that, but there is a piece of it that when I was, before I even knew this game, in fact, I found out about this game I was trying to just do a rough draft of a system for this just to play on my own. And I came across this game and I was excited. It's like, it wasn't one of those things where I had been working on it for 2 years and then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, it's already created. But there is a piece of the gameplay in the video game that I was trying to replicate in mine that I don't know if it's been fully addressed here. And that is like choices. In the game, you have to decide what you're going to focus on. You have to decide, like, emerging from your values, you have to decide what you're going to spend time on. But there's also something about like getting ahead of the game in terms of resource accrual. That there is a piece of it that is more like gamified to go alongside the lore. And I feel like if I'm the one responsible for creating the reward wholesale, it's just not going to feel as like satisfying if I need 20 credits to buy a hologram pass that allows me to use like the transport bridge. Something in Citizen Sleeper that feels so good is when you need 20 credits and you find some task that's going to give you 22 credits. Here, I'd be like, I'm going to do this task. How many credits does it give? There's no tables that randomizes credit amounts. There are no tables that say even whether or not this task gives credits, or if it gives information, or if it gives safety. I would just love a little bit more objectivity and a little bit of a more specific dice mechanic. And I do think that's a result of straddling between the worlds of journaling, solo play, and more mechanics based, is that like sometimes in a moment where you need stiff mechanics with like some hardiness to them, you need a mechanic that you could build your house on. It turns into a journaling thing where it's like, oh, well, this is all about gathering the resources. How many resources do you need? Well, write it down in your journal. And it's like, well, it's always going to be convenient. You know what I mean? I'm never going to say, oh, I really need 20 credits and I'm going to do this thing and it's 18 credits. Like that really won't make any sense. It's going to boil down into like yes or no, the thing is available or good use of time. So that is not, I'm not saying that the game should be that way. It's its own game. It's not that. I'm just citing like the differences between the video game and this. And I think also there are other things being created here that are not the same as that. But that is, like, I'm just saying one thing, that if somebody was looking for the exact same experience from playing the game, that would be a little bit different. And we have to be honest too about one thing, is that the game is very TTRPG inspired, but the game is also a video game. And so you're not in that game, you're not actually like creating the lore any more than like making choices. Whereas here we have to create dialogue, we have to create rewards, we have to understand what the threat is, we have to create all that stuff rather than just choosing through a pre-created menu. So just know you're not going to get the same experience. But yeah, I just think, especially because I said it earlier in the video, like I think the semiotic standard table, let me actually just show everybody that if you're not familiar really quick. Yeah, in fact, if I were to play this, I would use that, because even these little inputs, and I know it's so little, the combined system semiotic, like right here, high gravity, surveillance system, organic matter, refrigeration, simulation, debris. These are all like little mini seasonings, right? I have like my steak, I have my potatoes. Now I need my black pepper, my butter, my sour cream, my chives. And that's what we're missing. And yeah, I think it's awesome. If I had one wish for Christmas, I would love to just see a PDF downloaded supplement of an adaptation of the combined semiotic standard for this game. And then, baby, we're cooking with gas. But otherwise, this is very great. I'm very glad that I got it, and I'm definitely going to succumb to my weaker nature and eventually get those dice. I know I shouldn't be this way, but everyone has to make choices, and sometimes you just get lucky with the 4. Goodbye. Just once, I'd love to roll a crit. I wish I had the power to roll a crit, you know what I mean? This game's not exactly how I like. Oh, I gotta turn this off.